Hey there, welcome to the channel. This is Caffinicus, and today's World of Warships video will feature a game in the Neptune, the Tier 9 Tech 3 Royal Navy Light Cruiser. This is a Tier 9 maximum game on the map Atlantic. My team starts off at the southeastern spawn, and I'm not so familiar with positions to use on this map, but I figured I'll try to help my destroyer in B by using the island at EF7 for cover to begin the game. Anyway, let's talk a bit about the ship. The Neptune, on paper, is a damage monster. It has 12 152mm guns that fire every 4.22 seconds with main battery Mod 3 mounted. That's about 170 shells per minute, with a maximum damage of 3.2k per shell on a Citadel hit. It can only fire AP shells, but these shells have significantly improved armor penetration angles and a quick fuse, meaning you will often get full penetration damage on destroyers and superstructure hits. So, if you can surprise an enemy destroyer at close ranges, it's toast. If an enemy ship gives you a broadside, or lets you farm its superstructure, it's also toast. The firing range of 16.5 kilometers is okay, and I personally prefer the improved reload with MBM3 rather than extending your range, as shell travel times at longer ranges makes it hard to hit anything other than slow battleships anyway. And if your guns aren't enough, the Neptune comes equipped with 16 torpedo tubes, 8 a side. These go out to a range of 10 kilometers and have a respectable damage of 16.7k per torpedo. In addition, you can also launch them individually, just like the other Royal Navy ships. Your AA defense is monstrous, even more so than your USN counterparts. You'll shred incoming planes with the long-ranged AA aura going out to 6.9 kilometers, and you put up 9 flag bursts to deter enemy carriers from looking your way. In other words, if ships are giving you broadsides, you shred them with your guns. If they try to get close, you shred them with your guns, then smash them with your torpedoes. And if planes try to attack you, then you shred those as well. Besides its shredding capability, the Neptune's base speed of 33.5 knots is decent for Tier 9, but your rudder shift of 10.8 seconds and turning circle of 790 meters is quite unresponsive. You do get the physics-defying acceleration of the Royal Navy Lights though, so getting to speed from a standstill takes no effort. You also have access to the smokescreen consumable like your other Royal Navy Light Cruiser brethren, though you can also switch that out for a 10-kilometer radar if you so choose. I tend to play it with the smokescreen, but if you're in a division with, say, a destroyer friend who's willing to smoke you up, the radar can certainly come in handy. And of course, the Neptune's concealment of 10.3 kilometers with Captain Skills mod and camo is okay, but it's actually the worst among all the ships in this line. So, everything's peachy, right? Well, not quite. You have a decent HP pool of 44.9k with the upgraded hull, and a super heal that can restore almost half of your ship's HP, along with half of all Citadel damage. So how's that a problem? Well, the Neptune's armor profile is essentially similar to an empty Duff beer can that got squished by Homer Simpson's belly. You have 16mm armor plating all around your ship. To put this into perspective, the destroyers at Tier 9 have 19mm armor plating. So, even puny destroyer guns will get full penetration on you with HE. And what about ships with bigger guns? Any battleship you face will overmatch you no matter how you angle your ship, and cruisers will enjoy farming you with both HE and AP. And if you give enemy ships your broadside, well, you have a ginormous citadel that's exposed way above the waterline. So that super heal and all that HP, it's not going to help if you get taken out with a devastating strike, which makes this ship extremely tricky to play. So let's see how we perform in-game. I got to my starting position at F7 and initially was peppering the enemy Ibuki with my guns. A Fletcher popped up, so I started focusing on him instead before he was forced to activate his smokescreen to break vision. However, that's all I got out of the initial encounter, as we lost vision on all the other enemy ships in B until a Mayhem appeared to eat a few of my shells. To be honest, that was an unfortunate waste of a smokescreen. as we barely did any damage to the enemy and even failed to defend the B cap due in large part to a lack of vision. And I find that to be a pretty common occurrence in the ship. You're reliant on your team to get you vision, as you don't really want to be firing out in the open with big guns of the enemy team around. However, now we have an enemy Minnesota in our range, and this is one slow battleship that we will be able to farm. I aim high for the Minnesota, as my goal is to put as many shells as I can into his superstructure. And as you will see in this encounter, the Neptune gets full penetration damage on the enemy battleship's superstructure. Other than the usual non-penetrations and shatters against armored sections of the ship, I get almost no overpens at all. As a result, on some of our better aimed salvos, we're actually doing upwards of 4 to 5,000 damage to an equal tiered battleship. And we're firing these salvos every 4 seconds or so, which makes the Neptune a really nasty ship if you can get into situations like this. On the other hand, we can also see that the Neptune's shell flight time is rather long, even at only 12 to 14 kilometers. If you're shooting at sluggish battleships, that's not too much of a problem, but trying to gun down cruisers and especially destroyers at this range can become challenging. It's more like throwing as much stuff at the wall as you can and seeing what sticks. But while I'm working on the Minnesota, the game isn't going well for my team. We've lost 3 ships to their 2, and the enemy team is in control of all 3 caps. Our Fletcher is trying to contest B, but we're already over 200 points behind. He's also keeping the Minnesota lit, which is great for me, and I'm getting a lot more usage out of this smokescreen as I'm able to comfortably sit here and chew up the enemy battleship. The Minnesota gets behind an island, but with the arcing shells on the Neptune, we're still able to rain down lead in his general direction. This really should be one of the ships I enjoy due to my poor aim and the constant gunfire which allows me to adjust my shots, but somehow it doesn't quite do it. Maybe I'm just missing my orange fire ribbons or something. Anyway, our Fletcher picks up the B cap, which starts a few points rolling back to our team. However, that's not enough, as A and C are both firmly in the enemy team's control. So this means I really have to speed up my work on the Minnesota and then move on to help my team elsewhere. The Minnesota disappears for a moment and my smokescreen is about to expire. So it's time for me to push out. The quick acceleration of the Royal Navy light cruisers boosts me out of my smokescreen just as the Minnesota gets lit once again. And it's time to fire up my guns. I need to be very careful here though, as I don't want to get smashed by return fire from the Minnesota or from other ships to the north. The Minnesota is turning around and it will take his guns some time to acquire me as a target, and I take full advantage of that to fire away. Unfortunately, he is trying to pull away from me, and I'm just not hitting as many shells as I should. The Minnesota disappears from vision once again, so now I have to find someone else to bother with my guns. But there's no one in sight. I wanted to shoot at the flounder ahead of me, but there's a giant island in the way. We also know there's a Shiratsui somewhere in the sea cap, so we'll have to be careful of torpedoes as well. But our Fletcher friend fortunately lit up the Minnesota once again, which means that we get to annoy that enemy battleship once more. I slow down and activate my smokescreen and let loose with the flying hot lead. For a moment though, I wonder if this was a bad idea, as we lose vision of our target when our Fletcher smoked up. But no, that's okay. The Fletcher moves out of his smokescreen to provide eyes on the Minnesota, and for a bit of a bonus, he even gets a torpedo hit off. And finally, after what feels like a million shells fired, we are able to take out that enemy battleship to secure the middle of the map. My smokescreen turned out to be a bit of a waste though, as the island to my right now stops me from firing on the enemy battleships who are pushing south. And even though we're now even on kills, our team is still down by over 200 points. So I feel that I have to push forward and deal with the enemy ships in sea. My first target is obviously the Iowa, as he's right in front of my face. I immediately start firing and turning my ship around while he's still trying to get his guns to bear. Unfortunately, I don't have any torpedo angles on the Iowa due to the annoying pile of rock that was blocking my shots earlier. So it's time to gun and run. Both the Iowa and the Flandre get shells out at me, and as you can see, the Duff beer can of a Neptune just eats a ton of damage. But I keep shelling the Iowa over the rocky outcrop, and with my amazing DPM, we are still able to do some damage on the enemy battleship. I should be safe from the Iowa's return fire here, so I'm paying more attention to the Flandre behind him to see if his shells are coming my way. And sure enough, the Flandre fired, but luckily we were able to dodge his shells. I'm trying to fire at and sink the Iowa before he's able to get fully into cover behind the island at D9. And fortunately our shells are able to arc over the island cover, and with our DPM, we finally take out that enemy battleship and even up the ship count for about a second. However, even with the Iowa now sunk, we are still being pincered by the Ibuki to the west and the Flandre to our northeast. The Ibuki is trying to cap B, so I focus fire on him first. We really need to hold this cap to have any chance of catching up in this game. I do get a couple of resets off, but I am worried about the Flandre pushing south and just deleting me once he gets around the island. As a result, I turn on my smoke screen as I was hoping to use it while resetting the Ibuki and at the same time getting out of line of sight from the incoming Flandre. But that's when the Ibuki stops firing and goes dark, and now the Shiratsuyu has popped up ahead of me. Well, I have to push forward in order to keep the Shiratsuyu lit as I deal with him. And we do make quick work of the enemy destroyer, but now I've left my smoke screen and still have no vision on the Ibuki in B. He wisely holds his fire and stays dark, so I think we are going to lose this cap. I decide to launch torpedoes at the Flandre just in case he goes full speed past the island, while at the same time turning my ship around to see if I can somehow spot the cruiser in B. But no luck though, so we're going to end up trading the B cap for C, and the difference in points is going to keep on creeping up. Since I can't seem to find the Ibuki, let's see if we can do something about the Flandre instead. Looks like all of my torpedoes have unfortunately missed, so I start to turn my ship around to get my guns on target and begin arcing my shells over the island against the enemy battleship. Our Buffalo to the south is keeping him lit, and between the two of us we are able to make quick work of the Flandre's remaining HP pool and end the threat to our flank. The Ibuki takes advantage of my turn to put some shells into my side, and I think this is where I make the mistake that seals this game. The only way we can really win this is for me to get the B cap as quickly as possible. The only major threat here is the Ibuki who's been firing HE at me, and HE and fire are considered light damage that can be repaired easily with my super heal. As a result, what I should have done is immediately turned around and headed to B to fight it out with the enemy cruiser. Unfortunately, I turned the other way and ended up wasting a lot of time maneuvering to get around. We do get some damage in on the Ibuki, but our path has now taken us towards the remaining enemy ships pushing in from the west, which also means that I will end up in a crossfire regardless of whether I keep going forward or turn north to head towards the cap. I realized my mistake way too late and finally start to angle my ship to try to get around the island at F7 and head north into the B cap. I'm also out of smoke screens due to my poorly timed use of the consumable this game, so even if I do get into the cap, I will have no way of hiding from sight. And since we are still lit, there's probably a destroyer around that will keep me spotted for the entire enemy team. And there they are. The Buffalo's radar catches both of them just ahead of us, so I immediately turn my guns on the Venom as he is on very low HP, and we take him out for our Kraken Unleashed achievement. The Fletcher quickly disengages though, and we are unable to finish him off. the enemy Neptune and Bismarck have also started firing on me, and without any cover, I have to disengage instead of turning north into B as I was initially hoping to do. Definitely a bit too passive of me in this game, especially towards the end here, and I think that cost me the chance for a win. Well, all I can do now is to try to put out as much damage as possible and try to sink the remaining enemy ships before the timer runs out. If we can take out a few of them, we may have a slim chance of turning this game around, but I'm really not too hopeful. I start engaging the enemy Neptune while I make my turn, hoping that our Iowa will put in a big salvo to help me sink him. We are getting some damage done, but it's just not enough, and the Neptune smokes up, so we completely lose sight of him. It also says a lot about the ship when all the remaining enemies are aiming at me instead of the Iowa. Even the Ibuki, who could be farming lots of fire damage on a battleship, would prefer to take out the unarmored beer can of a cruiser. Oh well. Anyway, our Z-31 finally comes in from the flank after picking up C, but it's just too late now. The Z-31 charges straight towards our Iowa and lays down a smokescreen. I don't know, maybe he's trying to help the Iowa turn away and get out of line of sight and fire from the Neptune and Bismarck, but since we have no choice but to push into B anyway, it's kind of moot at this point. I think he probably should have gone straight for the cap if anything. There is no way that the Iowa and I can get into the cap in time, though even if we do, the points from A will still take out in the enemy's favor. There's less than a minute left before the end of the game. The entire enemy team is playing it smart and has gone dark, so it's not like we can get kills to extend the time. Oh wait, the enemy Tirpitz gets spotted pushing in towards us. He is on 15k HP, so the question is, can we get him in time? I start to fire at the battleship, but he is bow in, so I have to hit his superstructure to do any damage. Our shells are starting to rain on him, but the game of course takes out for a loss. So let's take a look at the post-game results. We did over 134,000 damage in this game, getting 5 kills for the Kraken Unleashed and the Dreadnought achievements. Our base XP was 1336 on the loss, which was top of our team. Also, well played to the Neptune on the enemy team. It's not typical that we see the ship on top on both teams, but it looks like he played better than me to carry his team to victory. We damaged 10 of the enemy ships, sinking 5. I only landed 347 out of almost 1200 shells fired though, a combination of my bad aim and the flighty nature of the Neptune's shells at long range. We took over 73,000 damage and almost 1.5 million potential in this game, and I'm really lucky I didn't get chunked harder by the Iowa and the Flounder considering my lack of armor. Anyway, for anyone interested, here are the equipment and captain skills I use for the ship. Main armaments mod 1, engine room protection, aiming systems, rudder shift, and by the way, you cannot take propulsion mod due to the physics-defying acceleration on the Neptune. Concealment, and main battery mod 3. For captain skills, I have last stand, though you could use grease the gears or IFA instead if you prefer. Priority target, consumable enhancement, superintendent and concealment expertise. I'll probably get adrenaline rush and maybe survivability expert at some point. And also, the Neptune may actually be one of those ships where expert AA marksman could come in handy, depending on how often you meet carriers, I suppose. So, the Neptune in a nutshell. I don't know. I want to like it, considering it has so much potential to put out damage. But on the other hand, I feel like I have to play so carefully in the ship to avoid being blown out of the water that I often end up being too passive. If you get into a good position and have vision provided by your team though, the Neptune is definitely a monster. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe and like buttons below as it helps me grow the channel. And please join me again next time for more World of Warships videos. Thank you for watching and take care.